Hey, it's your boy Richard Sherman. I'm so excited to be joining your Tampa Bay Buccaneers, joining the crew. Look forward to putting on a show for you guys. Stay tuned.
Okay, so sometimes we are able to hit on the news that we bring out to you guys a little bit earlier, and a lot of people were adding my Instagram this past week saying I lied about this a week ago when I made a video on it, but no, we got this one right, thankfully, because it would have been a bad look if I didn't. Well, if you guys didn't hear, officially the Tampa Bay Buccaneers came in and made a pretty big addition today. Now, real quick, I just want to make sure everybody here knows I made a brand new TikTok and Twitter account. It's at Microphone NFL if you want to follow me there. My Instagram is still going to be at The Flight Mike. And if you could take a moment to sack the like button, subscribe, and consider turning on our notifications, because we have been uploading daily recently. And I think the content's quite good, if I do say so myself, but I might be a little bit biased. Now that we get all that out of the way, break! Mic check 1 2 1 2. What's going on, everybody? Man, I was at the Tampa Bay Buccaneers versus LA Rams game live, and I have an archive on my Instagram page if you guys want to go check it out. But apart from it being just absolutely loud as hell at SoFi Stadium, and the fact that everyone just happened to be way more drunk than I was, I don't understand how people get so inebriated when they go to these games, but I digress. More power to you. The one thing I noticed was Matthew Stafford was absolutely carving up the Tampa Bay Buccaneers defense. And that's something that I'm not used to saying, because I think the whole reason, and there was a report that came out a couple days ago where Bill Belichick actually attested to this, and this is something that I always initially agreed with. A huge reason why Tom Brady went to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers was, yeah, they had a tremendous offense that had Mike Evans and Chris Godwin at the time. And if you even take a step back, before the addition of Rob Gronkowski, they had OJ Howard and Cameron Brate, which are really solid tight ends. They had Bruce Arians, who's an offensive genius, or an offensive genius that at the time was known for being able to get a couple of more good years out of Carson Palmer when he was in Arizona. And of course, obviously Tom Brady was very frustrated with the fact that Bill Belichick wasn't really bringing in remarkable wide receivers so he could make the most out of his skill set. And at the time, you have to understand, Tom Brady was trying to chase accolades like the most passing yards of all time, which he is set to pass Drew Brees for when he faces off against the New England Patriots this weekend, which, by the way, there's no freaking way this man planned it. If he planned it to be this way, that is absolutely ridiculous. I mean, do you think he went into LA thinking, hey, if I get 400 yards here, then I will be able to break this record when I go to New England? He's about 90 something or 80 something yards away from it. But that's before we get to the defensive side of the ball. And initially, the number one thing I loved about the Tampa Bay Buccaneers defense when Tom Brady was going there was they already had Jason Pierre-Paul, they had Ndamukong Suh, which I'm a huge fan of. They drafted Devin White, and that's before Shaq Barrett went ahead and just blew up for a season that none of us really expected, because Shaq Barrett was kind of like a role-playing pass rusher for the Denver Broncos, which, by the way, won a Super Bowl with the Denver Broncos with Peyton Manning. But then out of nowhere, the man explodes for 19 and a half sacks the one year he comes to Tampa Bay in 2019. So all in all, I'd say that this was a very attractive situation for Tom Brady. Bill Belichick said the reason why Tom Brady ended up going to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers was because the team was simply better. And honestly, I think that's the one thing most people just don't really look at, because I've said this over and over again. The reason why I think Tom Brady is the greatest of all time isn't just because of his on-the-field accolades, and it isn't just because of his direct performance on the field. I think this man is a savant off of the field and just puts himself in situations to win Super Bowls and win games. He takes pay cuts. He does the extra stuff that most average players would not do in order to put himself in the situation that he needs to be to win, whether that's his diet, whether that's putting himself in better situations or better teams, whether that's just pulling off crazy 28-3 comebacks in the Super Bowl. There's just a variety and a plethora of ways he does it, and that's why I think he's the greatest of all time. But in this scenario, you have a player that was a former adversary to Tom Brady. And I think this is hysterical because one of my first videos on this channel was when Richard Sherman trash talked Tom Brady and inevitably ended up regretting it, which we'll leave a link to that in the end screen if you want to check it out. But Richard Sherman had a pretty up and down, past 2 years himself. I mean, this is a guy that made it to 3 Super Bowls. His first Super Bowl was a blowout where he and the Legion of Boom just destroyed Peyton Manning and the Denver Broncos. His second Super Bowl was, an absolute just gut-wrenching loss because somebody decided to not hand it off to Marshawn Lynch when they were on the goal line. And of course, there was that interception by Malcolm Butler that inevitably got Tom Brady a Super Bowl. And then, of course, the most recent one where as he was starting to age a little bit, he was 31 years old, and he ended up being a veteran on a very stout and really good San Francisco 49ers team that just really needed some veteran experience. At that point, yeah, Sherman was great, but he wasn't the player that he once was. I think he was just there to be a vocal leader in that locker room and really help players like Nick Bosa, Fred Warner, DeForest Buckner, Eric Armstead, and Dee Ford really just feel comfortable playing in big games like the NFL playoffs and inevitably the Super Bowl. And of course, they went up against Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs, and they would eventually lose that. The year after wasn't as kind to Richard Sherman in the sense that he only was able to play in 5 games. It was fairly injury riddled, and he only defended 1 pass in those 5 games, which is a stark contrast from the Pro Bowl season he had the year prior, where he came down with 3 interceptions that year. And granted, he did have 1 interception in 2020, but the thing that sucked for him was that offseason, he was mired in controversy. We have a video on this as well. It's actually demonetized, so that's probably why it didn't get recommended to you. But pretty much in this video, Richard Sherman gets inebriated. He crashes his car and he ends up going to his in-laws' house and just drunkenly knocks on the door very aggressively. It's a very scary video, mind you, and it's all caught on camera. It's caught on this Ring camera, and eventually Richard Sherman gets arrested. He gets acquitted of most of the stuff that he got arrested for, mainly because of the contributions he's made to that community and because he's just typically not that type of person. I guess it was just a very rough time for him. But according to Richard Sherman, what happens next is very interesting. After an offseason where he regrouped and really took some time to think things over, he had discussions with multiple teams, and multiple teams were interested in him. According to a podcast that he posted on Pro Football Focus, the Carolina Panthers, Seattle Seahawks, and San Francisco 49ers all reached out to him, which all of which that he has a connection or a link to, except the Carolina Panthers. And according to him, I went with the best offer I had, the best opportunity to go out there and put some great tape on and to lead another group. I feel comfortable and confident in my abilities to go out there and execute and help that team win. And apparently Tom Brady reached out to Richard Sherman as well. Richard Sherman said he's the all-time great quarterback reaching out, and anytime he makes that call, it's a very difficult opportunity to pass up. So yes, ladies and gentlemen, it is official. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers are signing Richard Sherman in order to add some depth to that defensive back unit that really could use some, especially now that Sean Murphy-Bunting is on the IR. And this is absolutely terrifying. It's very on brand with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, having good veterans that at one point or another were considered to be one of the top players at their position. On the offense and defensive side of the ball, if you look at this entire team, you have Tom Brady, Antonio Brown, Rob Gronkowski. Hell, let's throw Leonard Fournette in there because he was extremely hyped up coming out of college. Then you go to the defensive side of the ball, Ndamukong Suh, Jason Pierre-Paul, Richard Sherman. I know I'm probably forgetting a couple of players here, but I'm naming players that really are up there in age and at some point or another were considered to be the best player at their respective position, especially Jason Pierre-Paul before the, blowing the fingers off incident. And now they all came together and formed probably one of the most terrifying teams in the entire NFL. Yes, I know they're up there in age, but as players get older and older, the one thing that they always get and the one thing they always gain is a tremendous football IQ. That's something Tom Brady has. That's something Richard Sherman has. That's something that's invaluable in the NFL today. And when you have that many veterans that were at one point or another at the top of their profession, you have Tom Brady in the quarterback room. You have Antonio Brown down in the wide receiver room with Mike Evans and Chris Godwin, who are significantly younger than him. You have Rob Gronkowski in the tight end room with younger players like OJ Howard and Cameron Braid. That defensive line unit could have its own video because it's absolutely terrifying. And then you add Richard Sherman, who is probably one of the most brilliant cornerbacks of our generation. I am absolutely terrified of this team, and I'm very happy that Richard Sherman is going to get an additional chance to prove himself. Let me know in the comment section down below what you guys think about this signing. And of course, make sure you check us out on TikTok and Twitter if you want to get your takes featured on these videos. Aside from that, I'm your boy Mike, and I'm dropping our mic until our next upload.